Hello everybody and welcome to our very first SIG talk. The idea of this is to introduce you to SIG talks as well as three topics which we feel will be of interest to those of our members who are members of this special interest group. My name is Richard Bishop. I'm Head of Service Development Delivery at Trust IV Limited, a Microfocus partner in Manchester. Also with me today are Todd DiCaprio, who's Director of Technology and Product Innovation at Corporation and Service Company, and Chris Trimper, who is Enterprise QA Analyst at Independent Health, also in the US. This SIG talk will be focused on quality and testing, and we'll also talk about the changes that have taken place within our user group since the Microfocus and HPE software merger. First of all, I'll give you a little bit of housekeeping. This is a live webinar. It's intended for all Vivit members, and the recording will be posted in the webinar section on the Vivit website, so it'll be visible to all members. The slide deck and webinar recording will be made available to you, and we'll send you links via email once they're posted on the website, so you can share them with colleagues who may not be able to join you in the live session today. If you want to enlarge the presentation pane on the screen, if you click the rectangle in the top right-hand corner of the presentation, which is highlighted with the red arrow on this slide, you can make it a little bit bigger, and particularly when we show you some demos, that might make it easier to see. A few more details about the control panel. If you have any questions as we go along, if you type those questions and send them into us using the Q&A pane on the left-hand side of the screen, type the question and click on the Ask button, and we'll see those questions as they come in. If you want to ask a question and receive an answer in your native language, click the flag in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, which will give you a language selector box. If you then click the radio button next to your language and click Apply, it'll be set to your language. The content for each of our SIG talks is going to be around the topics of functional testing, performance testing, and security, and how they all pertain to testing in general. Presentations will share real-world experiences, best practices, demonstrations, those types of things. And these SIG talks will be regularly held on a monthly basis on the second Tuesday of each month at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, so this time. Recordings, as I've said, will be available on the website, and you can share those then for local user group meetings or use them to encourage more local discussion about the topics that we'll be talking about. We're interested in getting everybody who's a Vivit member and has an interesting story to tell to join us in these. So if you have any ideas for topics or interesting speakers, please send them on to us. If you complete the survey or get in touch via our email address, info@vivitworldwide.org, which we'll send you at the end, we'll get back to you with that. Also, you can send questions in via our Facebook page or Twitter. We have a hashtag specifically related to this, so if you ask any questions via hashtag #VivitSigTalks, we'll be able to get back to you even if you're watching the recording. So we'll obviously monitor that after this live session. So today's topics, I'm going to introduce first of all the move to Microfocus, and we'll talk about the Discover the New sessions that the Microfocus executives had touring the world and telling everybody about the changes, and we'll discuss how those may potentially affect us. Todd DiCaprio is going to talk about big data, AI, and machine learning and how that relates to testing. I'll then do a VTS demonstration, and Chris Trimper will do a storm runner functional demonstration. Okay, so Discover the New, as I mentioned, was a tour launched immediately after the merger on the 1st of September by the Microfocus execs. They went around 14 world cities in 4 weeks and talked about the key tech disruptors, those being agile, DevOps, cloud, open source software, data-centric enterprises, as well as more modern technologies such as analytics and machine learning, which Todd will tell us about later. I was really pleased to be able to go to the London event, which was on the 7th of September, just a few days after Chris Hugh and team rang the bell at the New York Stock Exchange when it opened with the news of the merger of the two HPE software and Microfocus organizations. These events would build as an opportunity for Microfocus and former HPE partners and customers to meet the leadership team, and it's good to be able to attend this in person. I know other Vivit leaders who I've discussed this with, as well as members, were able to go to events in London, Washington, all around the world. I'm pretty sure that Chris Yu earned his frequent flyer miles in September. The first thing I noticed when I went to this event was what I initially thought was a lack of familiar faces. I've been going to Mercury, HP, and then HPE events for some time, and so I expected to see lots of people that I knew. But many people that I met were traditional Microfocus customers, including Novell, Serena software users, for example. This reminded me just how much of a game changer this merger actually is. Rather than a lift and shift of HPE software into another organization, right from the start there seems to be a desire to mix lots of different customers together and allow them to learn from each other. One conference attendee told me how Serena software was helping with his release management, and I was able to advise on how LoadRunner could potentially be useful to him with his Internet of Things testing. And I can already see the potential benefits of merging these two companies, as well as expanding Vivit and allowing us to collaborate with existing Microfocus user groups. Chris has a military background, and he stated the fact that for him the mission is everything. He expects all of his staff to be able to identify how each task they undertake helps towards that mission, and reiterated that putting customer at the centers of his strategy is key. You may not be able to read the slide in the photograph which I took, but his mission statement says, "We provide our customers with a best-in-class portfolio of enterprise-grade, scalable software with analytics built in. We put customers at the center of our innovation and build high-quality products that customers can rely on and our teams can be proud of." You can obviously take what you like from that, but I like the idea of putting customers first, and the desire to put intelligence and analytics into every product is already being seen, and Todd's going to expand on that later. Some of the key points for me were the fact that Microfocus and HPE Software, by merging, have become the 7th largest software company in the world. And after the main session, Chris Yu mentioned this and took part in a Q&A session with the audience, which was really useful. And he also discussed the fact that as the two companies have merged, they have a very broad portfolio, particularly compared to some of the larger organizations to the left of them in that chart. There are over 2,000 support people, and one of his key drivers was to make sure that valuable software investments that people have made with Microfocus don't become shelfware. And that's what we're trying to achieve with our SIG Talks. We're helping people get the most from their investment in software. And our plan is to hold these sessions with industry experts as well as Microfocus support people, so we can go through the most common problems that people face and help people to learn from each other's mistakes, to be honest. So we're pleased that this reconnection with customers is a priority for Microfocus because it aligns well with our strategic direction. We're working on a number of initiatives such as these SIG Talks, which will help us to encourage mutual support and knowledge sharing amongst our members to help people get the best value from their financial and technical investments in software. After the main session, Chris and his leadership team mixed with the attendees, which demonstrated that the new Microfocus is very keen to hear from customers and help them with their challenges. I had an interesting conversation with him, and despite him not making notes, he still remembered to follow up via my UK-based Microfocus sales contact within a few days. And this really impressed me because I felt that it was almost a throwaway conversation, but he took the time to follow up, which certainly impressed me. So that's my quick introduction, and I'll hand over now to Todd DeCaprio, who, as I've already mentioned, is going to discuss big data, AI, and machine learning with performance engineering. Over to you, Todd.
Great. Thank you very much, Richard, for that introduction. And it is great to be here as we start down this journey of a 13-month SIG Talks series on quality and testing. As Richard had shared with you, very exciting times, both with Vivit worldwide, as well as the Discover the New with Microfocus. So again, thank you very much, Richard, for that introduction. And yes, this is going to be a fairly exciting, fast-moving talk that I'm going to share. The objective here, 12 to 15 minutes. I want to cover off on some pretty specific topics. And if you have questions, either pop them into the questions here within the interface, or you can join us at hashtag VivitSigTalks on Twitter, and we'll be able to go ahead and look at those both real-time as well as in the replay. So thank you again for joining us, and Richard, thank you for that introduction. So let's get started. Again, we're going to talk about big data, machine learning, and also artificial intelligence. So a lot to go on here. You can see this is the calendar that we've got for the next 13 months, including today. There's the hashtag VivitSigTalk for you guys that also need it visually. And here's kind of the objectives of how we will be accomplishing this, and the dates and the times, as well as a link to fill out a survey, because if you don't have a talk yet, we'd love to provide you, the community, with an opportunity to share your ideas, just as Richard, myself, and Chris are going to be doing today. So with that, let's kick it off. We'll look at the agenda briefly. I guess, as many of you know, I share a great passion for many things, specifically around technology and also around innovation, to name a few. But I'm sick of the hype. Again, as I look across the market and I hear the buzzwords, these are three of the common buzzwords that I'm hearing. And the reason that I'm really sick of the hype is finding people who have actually done this and survived out the other end. And I'm not talking about just in the last 6 months to a year. I want somebody who's done this for 15 years or more. Well, that's why I'm here to share some ideas. This is a lot of the things that I've been doing for the last several years. It's also something that most recently I am actively working on, pushing out something brand new for the market that will be coming very soon. But as we think about big data, machine learning, and also artificial intelligence, I think it's important that we first take a closer look. So in the agenda, you can see we'll be stepping through a brief introduction of each one of these items. Again, there's nothing like starting off a dialogue and not having a common understanding of what these terms are and the context in which we are looking at them. Then we'll take a deep dive. We'll look at some other perspectives also in the marketplace, which I think is valuable, especially looking at the future of what it means for this. And as we walk into that future, again, what are the other things that you're hearing? What are the other things that you're seeing in the market? And again, give us the feedback. Use the hashtag. Also, some of the how-tos. So as a practitioner, as someone who's had an opportunity to work on these projects, and again, it hasn't been easy, thinking about, how do you approach these challenges, especially as we think about things like performance engineering. And then I'll just do a quick wrap-up with some summary and some next steps. As you can see, a lot of my slides have this effectiveperformanceengineering.com logo on there. Feel free to go out, hit the website. There is an O'Reilly book out there that was published in 2016. You can download 3 different digital versions depending on what your preference is, but again, wanted to make that available to everyone. As far as the little icon here, I'm probably not allowed to actually say what it means, but getting stuff done is very important to me. It should be first and foremost, I believe, in all of our minds, whether it's for your business or for your customers. And again, thinking about these 3 topics of big data, machine learning, and artificial intelligence, how is it those capabilities can be used to help your business and to help your customers? So as we look at this a little bit more detail, so this being that introduction, you can see across the top, we've got 3 different definitions. All of the icons that you see here, if you download the PDF version of this slide deck, which will be available very soon on our site, you will be able to click the links that'll take you to where I got the definitions, where I got the icons. But again, as we think about big data, what does big data mean? I had a colleague of mine when I was out in California a few weeks ago, asked me, yeah, Todd, I've got a lot of data. Is it big enough to be considered big data? Help me understand. Well, I don't know. And I had to reflect back and say, well, is it data that's held in such large amounts that it can be difficult to process it? And they said, well, yeah, absolutely. I said, okay, well, I guess you could call that big data. On machine learning, again, we can all read the definition together, but, as we read this definition, the part in the first sentence here, provides systems the ability to automatically learn and improve from experience without being explicitly programmed. So, again, being able to learn, yes, it is going to be programmed, but how does it get better? How does it improve, that algorithm, as an example? The second sentence here really focusing on that development of computer programs being able to access the data and then using it to learn for themselves. Again, just finished a TEDx event not more than a week or so ago, and a lot of these topics, again, we're talking about technology and innovation. Some of this came up with robotics. You may be familiar with Sophia. Again, these are some of the types of things as you think about machine learning, and you need to have a visual of what does that look like, starting with machine learning, and then really moving into artificial intelligence. So having this branch of the computer science that deals with the simulation of intelligent behavior with computers can be scary stuff. I know a lot of people have been talking about it recently. Believe it or not, there's already a lot out there, and you're probably using the technology every day. You just don't know that it's artificial intelligence. And the second definition here under artificial intelligence, the capability of a machine to imitate intelligent human behavior. And I mentioned Sophia. If you're not familiar with who Sophia is, she is a robot, but she also has a passport now and is considered a citizen. So, again, pretty interesting. Artificial intelligence being leveraged there, can carry on a conversation, etc. I've always wanted to share this illustration. It's one that if you and I were to sit down and have a conversation about, hey, Todd, what is big data? What is machine learning? What is artificial intelligence? How does it all fit together? I'm going to draw this illustration for you. And I think it does a real nice job of kind of tying in all the elements of data science, then looking at the big circles that you can see with artificial intelligence as well as big data. But then under that is this machine learning and data mining that is this continuous process that goes on. Often what you'll see is these deep neural networks, which is the bluish color on the left-hand side, again, being able to then push that artificial intelligence further. So, again, a very simple diagram can get complex as soon as you start looking at it, but you can quickly see how this might help people understand how does it all fit together. The important part is then take that understanding and think about your business. Think about your customers. What would be a use case or a business case where this capability of big data, machine learning, and artificial intelligence are going to come into play and really become a benefit of something that you can leverage and, quite frankly, will become a differentiator for you and for your customers. The next, we'll get into a little bit of a deep dive. And again, this is kind of reflecting on the experience, not only for myself, but several other practitioners in the marketplace today. And as you can see, I've written down 6 points. These are all points that I would hope you and I would look at today. I'm hoping that they're points that as you move forward in your career, as you move forward in, hey, we're going to take on some performance engineering around big data, machine learning, and artificial intelligence, these are those points that you want to be thinking about. These are the questions that you want to be asking, not only yourselves, but your peers and others as you work together. So the first one, do we know all the data points? Again, what are the data points? How many do we own internally? How many are we going to externally? How far out to the edge are these data points? How would they be impacted by other things like DDoS attacks? Have all the algorithms been defined? Again, do you know the logic that you need to define so that you can enable this machine learning and artificial intelligence to happen? The likelihood of you knowing it all up front is very small. So again, how is it you're going to iterate it? How is it you're going to test it, build it, and ensure that, again, the results that you're getting are exactly what you need. Build that iteration or iterations into what you're doing. Where are all the processing engines? So where do you want the work to happen? Do you want it out on the edge? Do you want it somewhere in the middle? Do you want it all in a consolidated single location? How is it that that's going to work? Again, where do you want those processing engines? What are the risks as it would relate to potentially privacy or security or even more? Again, thinking about the data that you have and where do you want those processing engines. Are there any unique protocols? Again, as we look at the constant evolving nature of protocols in the marketplace, maybe it's related to things like IoT, maybe it's related to other secure protocols or higher speed ones that we're constantly inventing. But are there any unique protocols that you need to think about with regards to the data feeds that are coming in and how you're going to be treating that from a big data perspective? What are those volumes or sizes of data that you're expecting? Again, as you pull these data sets, you may be doing it tens of millions of times per day, pulling in small or medium-sized sets of data, but again, that adds up very, very quickly. How are you going to be planning for that volume and that size of the data that you're pulling in? The other piece is you think through, how do you go about creating, resetting, and refreshing this data? How much from a size perspective do you need to have? But again, as you would walk through, whatever the environment flow is that you would typically use, dev, QA, UAT, pre-prod, and prod maybe is how you would flow. But how is it you're creating this? How do you create multiple environments? How do you create multiple data sets? How can you quickly create, reset, and refresh these data sets, which may be quite significant in size as well as in complexity? So a lot to think about there, but again, a bit of a deep dive, a bit of the key questions that you should be considering around these three components. Again, looking at the future, looking at some of the how-tos as we progress down this path, I found it intriguing. Forrester had gone ahead and published recently an article, as you can see, titled Predictions of 2018, A Year of Reckoning. I've got links to all these reports. You can either click on them or simply type them into your browser. But again, 75% of early AI projects will underwhelm due to the operational oversight. So my hope is that with those 6 questions that we just spoke about, that will help you not be within that 75% of underwhelming projects, but put you on the other side of the equation. Again, causing these business leaders to reset the scope of AI investments and place their firms on a path to realize the expected benefits. So again, thinking about all of these components are critical. Again, some of the challenges of big data, machine learning, and artificial intelligence are still being found every day. But as I look at the how-tos and, some of the learning that I've had along the way, as well as some of my peers in the marketplace, things like defining the objectives. What is the objective that you are undertaking as it would relate to this journey of looking at large data sets, leveraging machine learning, and expecting artificial intelligence to be able to help you and your customers make better informed decisions? Very critical to do across your stakeholders. Start defining them. Again, you're probably going to have to iterate on them and be able to focus into small deliverables. But again, defining the objectives is kind of that first how-to. Then break these down into subcycles. What are the pieces that we can deliver first? How can we start getting some of the capabilities and the value out to our business and out to our customers? The third one, mapping the flow and the scenarios. Again, typically done in front of a whiteboard or with some sticky notes in front of a wall, but being able to map the flow and the scenarios of that business case or that scenario that you're envisioning is being critical, because again, as we think about these algorithms, as we think about the logic, that's where we need to start. Okay, so we need this data, we need these algorithms, we're going to get these results, and then the AI is going to give us these types of results. Okay, well, we need to also think about these other bits. Creating the environment. Number 4, I briefly touched on it as we thought about data, but again, how is it that you're able to quickly create these environments? How can you quickly scale the number of environments to make it available across a variety of teams. Because who's going to be consuming all of the data, all the machine learning, all the artificial intelligence? How do you incorporate that into your workflow? Again, maybe it's a container technology that you're going to leverage. Maybe it's other technologies that you want to use. But again, number 5, we talked about creating the data. Again, what are the data sets that you're going to be going after? Again, in a very large project that I had the opportunity to work on, we only had about 2 or 3 of the data sets internally. Had to go externally for the other 20-plus data sets. So again, how is it that we are creating that data for our pre-production environments to verify and validate not only the data, but also into number 6, which is validating our algorithms. Because if you're doing logic, you're doing calculations, you're getting those types of results, you want to make sure that the algorithms are correct. Number 7, you want to validate the data. You want to validate the feeds. Again, as we think about machine learning and what these algorithms will be doing and adjusting to as they continue to learn, we want to validate that that data and those feeds, not only coming in, but what we're storing and sending out is also accurate based on our expectations. Lastly, number 8, review the results. This could come in many forms, and again, whether it's looking at the data that's being stored, the machine learning and the logic that's happening there kind of in the middle, or the end result from your artificial intelligence interface, whatever that may be. Maybe Sophia, maybe another voice interactive device, it may be a vehicle, it may be an IoT device. All of these pieces, you need to look at those results that are coming as a result of what we just walked through. So again, these are a few, where are things going in the future? Here's a link to the Forrester predictions, and then also from a how-to's perspective, the 8 critical points that I would suggest you have a look at. A little bit of bonus content for you. One of the areas that I've spent a lot of time on is, how is it that I can help to improve mean time to resolution with some incidents, and just wanted to share very quickly a blog that I recently read published by Dynatrace. So this is showing how they're helping to automate and mitigate with AI data. So as you can see, what's being illustrated here is, we pick up an incident that's happening. We're connected to a variety of different tool sets that we have in the environment. And then as we look at, why is this happening, we're reviewing all of that different data. That's illustrated in points 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The last one there is the impact mitigated, yes or no. And then if it's still ongoing, let's go ahead and initiate a rollback. Again, communicating that out to that tool to be able to initiate the rollback. If it's still ongoing, then we escalate. So again, this is just an example of how other organizations and software vendors today are trying to leverage big data, machine learning, and artificial intelligence to help you. So again, a very simple example, but this is what's happening, not only, I'm sure, things in your organizations, but also things in commercial software today. Again, I wanted to thank Vivit and thank you for participating in this Vivit SIG talk. As you can see, here's my Twitter handle. And again, I encourage you to go out and check out effectiveperformanceengineering.com to learn more and pick up on some tips and tricks that you could probably leverage today. With that, I would like to introduce Richard Bishop. Richard is the president of Vivit Worldwide. He is also a practitioner in many, many different things. I've had the opportunity to know Richard, I guess, for nearly a decade. Seems like he had more hair, I guess, when I first met him. But in all sincerity, he's going to be covering off on a topic called virtual table server. For those of us that have been around since the Mercury Interactive days and using LoadRunner, we'll all remember VTS. However, this is one of the ways that you can dynamically update real-time test data within your scripts. And it's kind of a hidden gem that not many people know about. So Richard wanted to shed a little bit more light on that and share with us why it's such a great add-on for LoadRunner and Performance Center. So Richard, with that, I will hand it over to you. And thank you again for this opportunity.
Yeah, thanks very much. As Todd's already mentioned, it's VTS is one of these tools that's been around for a long, long time. It came out in years ago with the earlier versions of LoadRunner. It was just known as VTS. VTS 2 was a newer version, revamped and relaunched around the time that LoadRunner 11 and Performance Center 11 came out. Despite the fact that it's been there for a long time, an awful lot of people still don't use it. It's almost like it's a secret. And I regularly come across people who are having difficulty using or creating test data and potentially using updating test data on the fly, trying to come up with really clever ways of getting around a problem when actually they don't realize that within their kit bag, it's a product that comes free with LoadRunner and Performance Center. They've already got this tool. So I'm going to give you a brief run through as well as show a demonstration of VTS in action. So this is one example of how and why you might want to use VTS. So in this picture that I've got on the screen, you can see two ovals, each of which represent a business process. So the first one is a new customer, for example, maybe applying for a loan in a bank or just joining a retail e-commerce site, for example. So a customer goes to a website, types in some data, and then at some point they're created a new account. That customer is then at a later stage going to log in, and that's the business process represented by the red circle. The problem that we have with this is that the script 2, which represents the customer login, can't run until after script 1 has already run. And if, for example, both scripts are data destructive, and you need to run for every 100 logins that you want to do, you need to create 100 lines of data. And once those 100 lines of data have been consumed, you need to create another 100. So you end up with this problem that you can't run script 2 until you run script 1. And as you run script 2, you start running out of data that was created by the earlier script. What often happens in places where I've worked, and I've seen this many times, is people will run script 1 in this example for a prolonged period of time that will write out data to, for example, a CSV file. Testers will then take that CSV file and use it as a data file for their second script, and that's fine, but if you've run your second script for any length of time, half the lines of data in your CSV file may not be valid anymore, and you have to restart the whole data prep process before you next run a test. This is where VTS comes in, and you'll see that the right-hand business process is no longer colored red because it's taking data from virtual table server rather than from a flat file. And the idea is that this data that's created by script 1 can be used immediately by script 2 in real time effectively, so that there's no time-consuming period of data preparation before you can run a second test, for example. In a little bit more detail, this shows how it actually works. So the first script takes in a row of customer data from a table within VTS, and in my example appends a timestamp to it to simulate a business process. The first script, VTS 1, then takes information and writes it out into a second table, with again held in VTS, and then a second script takes that newly created data. But rather than talk you through it on the screen, I'll show you a demonstration. We had a technical difficulty which meant I couldn't show it completely live, but I've got a video which I can talk you through. So the potential jeopardy of showing you something live has been replaced by the potential jeopardy of a video running too fast for me to describe what's happening. So we'll see how that goes. If you want examples of these scripts, I have a GitHub repository where I've got a whole load of LoadRunner sample data. That's the URL for a folder containing the two scripts which I'm about to demonstrate, and so that may well be useful to you. And if you want to have a browse around in there, there's a whole load of other LoadRunner sample scripts that might be useful to you. So I'll just switch to the video. Okay, so this is what it looks like immediately after you've installed Virtual Table Server. The default port, as you can see there, is port 4000. So if you install this on a machine, browse to port 4000 on that machine, that's where you'll find this interface. You'll see that when it first starts up, it's disabled. It says access from script disabled in the right-hand corner. And it also shows the default port that scripts will connect to. So you've got port 4000 is where you manage it, and port 8888 is the default port where your scripts connect to it. So if you click Enable, we've now got it set up and ready and waiting to connect to load runner scripts. In our case, we want a second table to take the data, the output data effectively from the first script, and that's done by clicking Other Instances. In this case, I'll just call it Table 2 and set a second port. Makes sense just to go to the next port up, 8889. Okay, so that's now started, and I can browse to that and see the second table. So I've now got two tables that I can look at in my browser in real time, and are now ready to take and give out test data. Test data can be imported from a number of different sources. You can see there's an option to import from an external database, as well as from text files. It says CSV file, but it's a bit of a misnomer because there's lots of different delimiters that are suitable. But in this case, I'm going to just use the built-in sample data that comes with it. So the sample data is great if you just want to have a play with VTS and familiarize yourself with it. So I've imported customer data there, as you can see. The good thing about VTS is that it's possible to dynamically edit these customer names, for example. I've got a couple of people who are commenting that they can't see the video, and I'm not quite sure why that is, but we'll make sure that you can definitely see the recording. The first script, which is on the screen at the moment, is a load runner script that's available from that sample site. At the start, there's a whole load of variables that you set for the name of the VTS server, as well as the ports where you can access the data. And I've put transaction timings around each of these steps so we can time how long it takes for VTS to retrieve data from a table or write data to a table. There's a whole load of VTS functions that all start with LRVTC. They're all labeled in the function reference, and as is common with all of the functions in LoadRunner, if you highlight it and press F1, it brings up the function reference so you can get all the syntax correct. And there's a whole load of different options. I'm only going to demonstrate bringing in a row of data from VTS and then writing it out to another table, appending some data to it. But you've got options to retrieve data by row or column, append indexes to it, and all those different kinds of things. So after importing a row of data, the next step is, in this example script, to append a timestamp to it just to show that we're doing something in real time. And in this example, I've changed the customer ID to my name, Richard, so when this runs, you should see the name Richard appear in the output log at the bottom of the test script. Because I'm bringing an entire row of data, I'll end up with a whole series of variables brought into my script. So in this case, customer ID, company name, and so on, as well as the timestamp that I've added. So what we should get in the second VTS table when this script runs is a line of data exactly the same as it appeared in the first table, but then with the timestamp appended to it. So if I play the script, you see it ran incredibly quickly. And in the output window at the bottom, you can see it says row containing the customer Richard has been retrieved from table 1. further down it says it was written to table 2. And we can prove that that's happened by going back to the browser and having a look at the tables themselves. So you see the row of data containing the name Richard is now gone, and it's been appended into the second table. So that proves it works for a single user, but obviously the next step is to run this at load. And the good thing about VTS is it is very scalable. So the second script is almost identical to the first one. The only difference is all it's doing is taking data from a table. So if I run that, again, it runs very quickly. And it gives me an update to say that the row containing customer Richard has been removed from the VTS table. And this has come from the table on port 8889, so we know this is our second one. So this here is a load runner controller window. 2 scripts, exactly the same scripts that I've just demonstrated, and they're set basically to run for around a minute. I can speed this video up so we don't have to watch the whole of the minutes of a test running. But what I've set it to do is for the VTS1 script to start, and then approximately 5 seconds later the second script will start, so that we know that the second script will always have data because it'll always be working behind. Okay, I've got a couple of updates from people who have been experiencing problems watching this video live. It appears to be because they can't install Flash. The good news is our next version of this webinar will be in HTML5, so that means you won't need to install Flash, so that'll be good. We'll also have these available as recordings, so you'll be able to either watch them online or download them as MP4s. So hopefully that will resolve the issue that you've got, because we're aware that people want to see this content. This test that's running, one of the things you can do whilst the test is running, as I showed earlier, is update data on the fly. And that's a great advantage of being able to use VTS. You can't do that with CSV files that are obviously packaged up at the start of your test scripts. So I'm not going to keep going because I'm well aware of the fact that immediately behind me is Chris Trimper, who's waiting to do a demonstration of Storm Runner Functional, and I don't want to crash too much of his presentation time, but that's giving you a quick feel for how VTS works, as well as some of the rapid response times. You've seen from the graph that's online now that it's taking data typically in around a millisecond from VTS, and it writes at the same speed, so it's incredibly fast and scalable. So very useful if you want to either create data on the fly, or for example, if you're testing something like a web service, you may well be given an authorization token that expires after a period of time. So you might want to maintain a cache within VTS of recently issued tokens that can be used by various scripts. So there's lots of potential reasons why you might want to use VTS. Hopefully I've given you a flavor of those. As I say, the recording will be available for those who, I think there were a couple of you who missed it. So that'll be available for download, and if you've any questions, feel free to follow up either online now or by using the Vivit SIG Talks hashtag on Twitter or any of our social media channels. Okay, so I'll hand over now to Chris. Chris is an early adopter and beta tester of Storm Runner Functional. He's been using it for 6 or more months, and I first saw it when he demonstrated it to me when I met him in June of this year at a Vivit meeting. He's very keen to share some of the experiences that he's had, and he's very, very keen to demonstrate this new product. So without any further ado, I'll pass over to you, Chris. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. Thanks, guys, for having me here today. So as Richard pointed out, I was an early adopter to Storm Runner Functional through beta testing going through different cycles, checking out new features as they come, waiting patiently for new features to try out. And I want to give a chance to give everyone in the community a chance to, check that out. So we're going to start with a couple of quick slides, and then we're going to get into the actual product itself. So why is something like StormRunner Functional enticing to me? Well, the web is a pain. Devices are a pain. And functional automators like myself, we are lazy. So I don't mean that to be negative. It's just take it from a sense of lazy equaling trying to be efficient, not wanting to do the same thing over and over again, and not wanting to get hit up with obstruction after obstruction in your workplace. So let's look and see how these problems of mine are solved with StormRunner Functional. So how can it help? StormRunner Functional brings a one-stop shopping capability of testing to folks who are doing anything web or mobile related. We can explore, we can execute, we can report, we can record, both web and mobile. From the exploration point, we can choose any device, any OS and browser combination, and all of these things are available to us on demand. For those of you not aware of StormRunner Functional, I probably should have started with this. StormRunner Functional is a automated and manual functional testing tool provided by Microfocus that is 100% cloud-based, which is very cool because cloud-based provides us the infrastructure and the capability to do things without having to have any on-premise initiatives. So if you're like me and it takes weeks and months in provisioning of servers to get new features and capabilities into your environment, that can be rather difficult. But to have it all available to you in the cloud and available today, it is very, very nice. Execution, we can execute cross-browser. We can execute with various screen resolutions, and I have much better renditions of these screenshots in the demo, so don't try to breathe in. They're very difficult. And you can go across operating systems. So everything that you would normally need in a web testing tool is available to you in the cloud with your existing Microfocus automation tools. So what can it execute? Remotely, meaning from my desktop, pointing these to the cloud saying, hey cloud, run my tests. I can do UFT to StormRunner Functional. I could do LeanFT to StormRunner Functional. And it's very interesting that Richard was talking about the Mercury days, because now I think there is no more selenium solution for mercury poisoning of days of old. Selenium and mercury can live together. You can run your selenium tests alongside your what was once a mercury tool, then HP, and now Microfocus, and they all work together, and it works really well. If you don't want to run them from your computer, you want to go full standalone, you can upload them. You can upload your UFT. You can upload your LeanFT, and you can upload your Selenium tests all into the cloud and run them fully from the cloud. There's a lot of great reporting and metrics in the dashboard where you can see your trending, your results, what's going on now, and other interesting dashboards. Newer features being added are analytics, so you can tie into your Google Analytics and be more intelligent when choosing your tests. In your testing tool dashboard is now your analytics, which will give you the capability to properly choose what browser combinations, resolution combinations, OS combinations based on your end users. Also in the cloud, which I don't necessarily have time to go into demo today, you have the ability to record. So if you want to do a fast script, if you want to have a tester or someone in the business go in and record a script and provide you a base script. For any of you that are familiar with Sprinter, think of it as Sprinter for the web and the cloud, but with a whole lot more features. We can record a test and have either a script for it or have a full-blown automated test at the end of that session. And all these capabilities are available for mobile too. So iOS devices, Android devices, either in the cloud or actually tethered to your computer. So now let's just jump into the demo. All right, so first we're going to start off with the dashboard. So from the dashboard, what do we have? We have the ability for a quick start. It gives you the ability to get into your mobile, get into your web scripting, get into your automated testing and exploratory testing, all from a very simple jump point. We also have understanding of our consumption because the licensing is parallel. We can see our analytics. We can see all of the great features that are available to us on this dashboard, trending and such, and you can even add your own fun logo at the top. Now what's exciting to me is I can integrate this with my existing Microfocus tools. So we use unified functional testing for all of our stuff. We now have the ability to extend it into the cloud for testing. Again, really, really exciting for me. Think about all of your web woes and having to have machines on campus with different browsers, different OSs, figuring out the right screen resolutions if that's a problem for you, just maintaining these things and having to have them sitting around and either just having the bare minimum because that's all that the budget allows in terms of resources, or having this plethora of virtual machines that you got to mess around with. God forbid they're real machines, because that would be a lot of heat. Having to have these all sitting around and having to work with them, that's all now in the cloud capable for you. So it's as simple as going in and setting up your StormRunner functional account in your unified tester. They provide you with a client ID, you connect it, and it's a piece of cake to do. When you go into record and run settings, you can choose StormRunner functional, just like you would normally choose your local browser, but choose one from the cloud. You are presented with a variety of OSs, a variety of browsers, including even some beta versions of browsers, which is kind of cool. And you're also provided with a variety of resolutions that you're able to use for your test. So I built a simple test here for the Vivit website. Don't gauge me on my coding. It was just a really quick test for the purpose of a demo. And this is going to run in the cloud. So you can see it starting up in UFT. And if I jump back to my browser, you'll see, hopefully in the upper right, you'll see a little thing denoting that the test is running. Now this test is going to take about a minute or so to run. And instead of sitting here and humming the Jeopardy song to you, I'm going to do a fast exploratory test. We're going to multitask. As I mentioned, this is a one-stop shopping for all of your testing needs. So what about your manual testers? What about the need to just latch onto a browser that you may not have access to? StormRunner Functional does provide that for you in addition. So here I chose Windows 7, Chrome, and a particular resolution that I wanted to test with. So I've set that up, and I'm going to start the browser. Now what's really cool is what's happening here is a machine is being provisioned for me, and it's being set up with the parameters I chose, and now I have my browser available to me. So I'm going to go to our corporate website, independenthealth.com, and I'm just going to do a really simple test. Now while this page is loading, something important to note is I mentioned a machine is being created for you. If you're in an environment where data at rest is a potential issue, or PHI or other things, the machine being created for you to run your test is destroyed, which is great because I don't have to worry about my data sitting around ready for someone to access. So back to the test. We're going to do a simple test to find a doctor. We're just going to click something from our quick list of popular searches, select an I don't know for a plan just for a quick sake of a test, and do a fast search. Now what's neat is there's a storyboard being built for me as I'm clicking through this. So notice that all the steps that I'm doing are being recorded here. So I can go back interacting with the web browser, and I can maybe change and expand the radius of the search that I did. And when I expand that, all this is being recorded in that storyboard there. So what if I want to, maybe take proof of something that I did? So I can take a screenshot of that, and I can, highlight things with a little basic markup. Sorry, that was a really dismal circle, but you get the point that you can mark things up. And what's neat is I can save that, and that is going to be readily available in that storyboard. I can even add comments in there, maybe talking about what I did in this particular test. Now, when I'm done with my test, I can say done, and I can mark it as passed, failed, But when I save this test, those results are going to be available to me. So I can look at my latest runs, and I can see the results that were available to me from my past run. So I can see here all my different steps. I can see what environment I chose, Windows 7, Chrome 62. It was run in the cloud. I spent 1:46 on it, and there's my 8 steps with my comments at the bottom. And if you notice, there's a little photograph icon by step 8. If I click it, I can see the screenshot that I put there. I believe the possibilities are endless with the exploratory capabilities, and it really does bring some really great capabilities here. If you were to do a recorded automation script from the tool, it would look the same in terms of the interface that you would use, or just create a report. So now what we're going to do is we're going to jump into the results for the test that we did, because we see that our test is now done. We can see recently finished is our Vivit quick test. And we're going to look at the results. Here we had Windows 10, Firefox 57, and 16:9 resolution. So
Chris, we have a question. We have a question about which may be appropriate to answer at this time. It says, are the UFT scripts running headless? I thought since you're now looking at the UFT results, might be a good time to answer.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are actually not being headless. In the sense of, if you've ever run a UFT test, and I apologize, I didn't see the question. I have my video full screen here for demonstration purposes. If you've ever run a UFT test where you've pointed it at a machine and said, hey, run on this machine, maybe use ALM as an interface for that, but that machine exists, it has a real desktop, it probably triggers it either through some RDP connection or something else, it would run that way. These are actually being run on real browsers, on real machines. So no different than just a moment ago when during an exploratory session, I started up it is a virtual machine, started up a machine, it had the particular operating system, the particular browser that I sought out, and the screen resolution that I wanted. That same thing is happening when I'm running these tests. In fact, to kind of demonstrate that, when you are looking at the results, you'll actually see a screenshot for every interaction that is being done. It actually takes a snapshot for those interactions. So as it's doing the click, as it's doing the checkpoints and different clicks and interactions of your website, those screenshots are being captured. Probably because you don't have hands-on to that machine like you would in a world where you have the machine on-prem. It gives you the insight into that. So these are all real operating systems, the proper browser actually being run through there. I mean, they don't offer the capability to RDP into it while it's running, but these are real browsers. There are headless possibilities with UFT, but those would be on-prem and likely discussion for a later date. And if someone's interested in that, please fill out our survey with some details on desires of headless interaction with UFT.
Thanks, Chris.
Certainly. Looking back at the results, every page that you visit you can see a little thing in there that had the number of milliseconds. So it's kind of nifty. They put some client-side performance metrics in the result sets here. As we look through the results, I'm thinking, well, these don't feel like UFT results, but if I go into the details step by step, I can actually see a lot of the properties and values that we're accustomed to working with in object repositories and within the user interface. And we can see that those screenshots, we can pop them up, we can see more details on them without any issue. So, all right, we're thinking that's great and all, but that's just single-threaded. How can this do more for us? So something great that we can do that was introduced just recently. So with the combination of StormRunner Functional and the latest version of UFT 14.02, there's a new feature available for us. It's Upload Test. We can either upload a test that's existing on our file system, or in this case, I'm going to upload the test that we have open. So choose the Upload Active Test, do a quick save, give it a name, and we're going to upload it. This is now sending that test, I believe packaged, probably zipped. I didn't look in the details, but it's sending that off to StormRunner Functional for our consumption. Once it's done, it tells us where it's at. I don't need to click on the link. I already have StormRunner Functional open, so I'm going to switch back over to it. And we are going to just dive in and use that. So I'm going to make a new automation test, give it a name, and typo the name, give it a proper name, and then we're going to choose the script that we just put up there. So we'll go and look. We see the UFT icon there, so we know that's our UFT script. It's a little tiny triangle, hard to see on the screen, but trust me, it is there. We're going to choose it. If there were multiples we wanted to choose, we could, but for time's sake, we're just going to do the one. Now, after we chose the script, we need to choose the environments. My instance has 6 concurrent capabilities right now. Let's load up 5 browsers at random, and we'll just kind of plug some in there between Windows 10, 8.1, and Windows 7. Do have the ability to do Linux, and I've heard that Mac is coming soon. Stay tuned for listening to Vivit and Microfocus for dates on Mac OS capabilities. Which, wouldn't that be cool to send tests to Mac and Linux when I have a Windows PC and don't have access to those things? Pretty groovy. So choose a couple browsers. I kind of like the 16:9 resolution. You can choose any combinations that you want. But after I chose those 5, I'm going to say run. And what's great is we've now just created our own mini horse race. The horses are off, they're running, and all 5 of these are now going to be running at once. So go. So it's initializing them. Initializing is prepping the test and sending it off to those machines. So if we look, we have 1 test that is running, but we can go back to our home screen and see that we now have 5 of our 6 parallel threads being run. For fun's sake, we're going to add a widget for our newly created test. Just start typing it in and select the test that you want. And we can see that that test is running. So we will get live details about that test if needed. And we can even see in the test runs that it's running there too. Sorry to kind of fly through this, but there's a whole bunch of awesome functionality here. So again, to make the most use of our time, let's just pop over to Mobile Lab. Mine are currently offline. I don't have mobile in my instance at the very moment, but I can assure you that we have done a lot of work with mobile. Works out really great, both iPhone or iOS and Android. And I even did a trial with tethering in an old Samsung Galaxy of myself through a USB cable to my laptop, and that's that SCH i535. Yes, folks, that's an old Galaxy. But it worked great, tethered into my laptop, and it became part of the Cognizant Cloud that is Storm Runner functional. So you can actually expand your devices that way as well. So you can see you would set up a mobile session in the same way you would do with a web session. And for time's sake, we're going to kind of bump this for a minute and not go through it in full. I do know there's a variety of videos out there from Microfocus, and they do work in the easy way that they have illustrated. So it is the way it works. You can even attach apps to a mobile device, which is really great. And if anyone's used Mobile Center before, this is basically all the functioning of Mobile Center in the cloud, again, without having to set up the on-campus, on-premise Mobile Center functionality. So while I was kind of going through that little fast thing, the tests are done. All 5 are done. Amazingly, they passed. I say amazingly because it means I must still know how to script something. And let's look at those results. So we can easily see all 5 instances there. They're grouped by operating system and browser. They're all in the green. Maybe I should have made one fail for fun's sake, but I didn't think of that. And we can see all the statistics for every page load. So those numbers across are steps, and each bar represents a different OS browser combination. So it's kind of neat. We get a little bit of performance data here. We can do a neat thing where we can do comparison and compare 2 different test runs. So notice as I choose the browser, the environments will change, and we can scroll through and compare them. So if you had an instance that was failing in one browser and not another, you could look and see what the actual behavior was of those. You kind of bounce through the steps and they keep them in sync, and it's quite nice to have that capability to see. And again, there would be screenshots for each and every one of these. So there it is. That is my fast 10-minute walkthrough of Stormrunner Functional. Again, upload capabilities, just to reiterate that, you can upload LeanFT, UFT, and indeed Selenium web tests to this platform. I didn't want to embarrass myself. I haven't written Selenium in a couple of years, so we did not prep one of those for today. Jumping back to our presentation, that's the end of the demo. And thanks for checking it out with us.
Thanks very much, Chris. For that, Chris, it was excellent. I'm always amazed whenever you demo Stormrunner Functional just how passionate and excited you are about it. So it was really good to hear that again. Thank you. I'm quite sure that that's likely to generate a whole load more questions and a whole load more interest. And so if people do want particularly SRF demos or anything like that, or anything that we've touched on, if there's something that is a burning topic of interest for you, please let us know. Answer our survey, and if you want to either speak or suggest somebody else who's a good speaker that we may not yet have approached, then please let us know, because we'd like to make these sessions as interactive and as member-driven as possible. So please let us know if you have any additional suggestions. Just to make you aware of one other webinar, there's a Vivit webinar tomorrow, which you may not have heard of, around data center automation. That's at 1700 Central European. I think that's an hour different to today, isn't it? But yeah, it's an hour earlier than today. But if you want to register for that, that link is on our website. And as we've already mentioned, if you could complete the short survey, that would be great. And we'd like to take feedback from you and make sure that you get what you want from these presentations. We're aware that two of you who made comments said that you're having difficulties watching those videos. That shouldn't be an issue in our next platform. As I mentioned earlier, this webinar platform is being upgraded in January to HTML5, so there will be no requirement for Flash, which is a big improvement. And it will mean that we'll be able to do live demos rather than having to show you a video. So it'll be easier for us to do a handoff between multiple presenters doing live interactions. So that's something to look forward to in January. We'll send you details of the survey, so if you can complete that, let us know the sort of thing you're looking for, then that would be great. And that's it. So thank you for joining us. We hope to see you soon. If you feel that this content would be of use to your friends or colleagues, please let them know, and be sure to share the links or interact with us on Twitter or our other social media feeds. So thank you once again, and goodbye.